Hello everyone. I hope you have well understood what are the themes that have to be studied in Western political thought, Greek philosophy, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle and Machiavelli. Alright, Machiavelli comes after every 2 years. Alright, so ensure that you study, and his application is also very wide, even in paper 2, even in understanding the reality of politics. So don't ignore any thinker as such. Alright. But it is not possible to cover all the topics question. That is the beauty of the test, that test will only test you. Okay, so all topics that are there in the day, that will not be covered in the questions, yes, but we will emphasize on what is going to be important for both 2023 as well as obviously 2024. Fine. So today's continuity is Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau and Mill. Alright. Now Hobbes and Locke has been appearing alternatively. So 1 year they'll ask Hobbes, 1 year they will ask Locke. And there has been a year as well where they ask both together. Okay. So very much recurring in the examination. And Mill is asked every 3 years. Okay, after every 3 years Mill has been asked. But you never know, UPSC might just break the pattern. But however, it is important that we know this pattern of how questions are being framed. Fine. So let's go to today's question. Now before that, you know, the idea of making questions very surprising to you is to improve your art of interpretation. Okay, so don't take it like a test where you will feel, "Arey mujhe to aaya hi nahi." Irrespective, you apply your brain and see how it can be deconstructed in the best manner possible. Fine. So because a test that we do, okay, this entire test that we are doing everyday writing is to develop your different kind of skill sets. So questions bank also will be as diversified as much as we can test you, develop that nuance in your skill set. Fine. So let's move to today's themes. So we have Hobbes, Locke. Now Rousseau is not mentioned in the syllabus, but it has to be studied because the social contract tradition, alright, until you write answers, when you write for example any thought of Hobbes and Locke, you should also know Rousseau. And Rousseau also has application in understanding participatory democracy, direct democracy, right? So he is someone we cannot ignore, he has to be studied. And yes, Mill is one of my favorites. So we have Hobbes, Locke. Now in Locke, there is also emphasis that the doctrine of separation of power, fine. It is apart from the routine social contract, theory of property or consent resistant, also you should study very well the doctrine of separation of power, fine. And yes, Rousseau we know, Mill also. Now let's see the question, and then we will go to how this can be done. So this question is for 20 marks, alright. So it might seem difficult at its appearance, but let's see how we can deconstruct it in a better manner. The notions of right and wrong, justice and injustice have no place there. Okay, so it is something where there is no emphasis on right and wrong and justice and injustice. Okay, where there is no common power, there is no law. Where no law, no injustice. Okay, and this question is of Hobbes and 20 marks. Now how we will deconstruct this question? How will we deconstruct this question? All right, let's see. Okay, so the notions of right and wrong, justice and injustice have no place there. So what is it where this theme has been picked up? Which part? Is it the human nature of Hobbes? Is it the state of nature? Is it the nature of the social contract? Okay. So once you decipher from which theme this particular question is, or is it on Hobbes' methodology? So very obviously, if we have understood that where there is no power, so where there was no power, okay, there was no power in his idea of state of nature, fine. So we decode that this question is being picked up from state of nature. Now first thing that you need to deconstruct is analyze which part of the syllabus or which theory this question has been asked from. इससे क्या होगा, relevant content लिखेंगे और flow जो है वो भी orderly होगा, fine. So first thing we understood and deconstructed is that this is from the state of nature. Now the challenge is कि ये सवाल 20 मार्क का है, ठीक है, तो 20 मार्क का सवाल है तो डायरेक्टली स्टेट ऑफ नेचर पे भी हम जंप नहीं कर सकते, हमें थोड़ा हॉब्स के बारे में डिस्क्रिप्शन भी देना पड़ेगा, ओके. सो सेकेंड थिंग इज दैट यू नीड टू टॉक अबाउट हॉब्स एज अ थिंकर ऑल्सो इन दिस क्वेश्चन. इमेजिन इफ दिस क्वेश्चन हैज बीन आस्क्ड इन 10 मार्क, then you can say that yes, the right context in this particular regard is that this is Hobbes' theory of state of nature, and then start from there. But the same question, if it comes for 15 and 20 marks, we expand the scope by talking about the importance, the significance of the thought of the thinker. We also add a more better critical evaluation. We arrive at a more synthesis. But if it is 10 mark, there is less space, we can just do with one critical evaluation and then synthesize. But if it is a 20 mark of the same thought, then we will have to expand. So this demand of the question will also now vary the content that you will apply on the number of marks of the question. तो यही सवाल 10 मार्क में भी लिखना आना चाहिए, 15 में भी और 20 मार्क में. ये रियल आर्ट है. Understood? Okay? So let's see the structure of this particular question. Okay. So I will just again just rewrite the question for you, because this is a more interpretation based idea. So question was, Hobbes, right? So there is no right and no wrong. Okay? Right? Second idea, justice and injustice. दोनों नहीं है. And they themselves have stated why this is not there. Why this is not there? What they are saying? They are saying there is no common power. No common power. I'm just decoding the question, then we will move to the structure. ठीक है? Because many people don't know how to do deconstruction. All right? No common power, which means there is no law. And when there is no law, okay? So the whole idea of no injustice. So let's see. First, I'll explain you the meaning of this question. Even though this is picked up from state of nature, and we know the idea of state of nature, we have to adhere to the idea of state of nature in light of the demand of the question itself. Okay? तो हमें वहीं से question को उठाना पड़ेगा जहाँ से उन्होंने line of thought दिया है. तो इन्होंने कहा कि no common power, no law and no injustice. Okay? So which means what is this association between law and justice that they are talking of? Law and justice. Okay? So we have to understand that Hobbesian theory, after explaining human nature, after explaining the state of nature, and after explaining the context of what is his idea of law, okay? So his idea of law is what? It is legal, right? It is the judicial aspect. It is legal concept, all right? And he is obviously positivist theorist of law, so he give emphasis on law. All right? Now, in this regard, who did not make justice as a legal concept? Before Hobbes, who was the person who did not make it a legal concept? Recall, this is called interlinkage of thinkers. Okay? So, जब इन्होंने तो justice को by product बनाया ना law का, कि जहाँ law नहीं है वहाँ justice हो ही नहीं सकता, जहाँ law नहीं है तो वहाँ पे justice और injustice क्या है ये किसको पता? Which means they have made justice as a by-product of law. ये समझ आ रहा है? We will talk of state of nature, but ये question की line हमें understand करनी पड़ेगी. So justice for whom Hobbes is by-product of law. Okay? So in this question, in the synthesis, we will also be comparing what? We will be comparing thought of Plato and Hobbes. Because Plato gives what dimension? Plato gives a moral dimension to the concept of justice. For Plato, justice is righteousness. But for Hobbes, justice cannot happen without law. So his whole idea of justice also and injustice is based on this idea of legal. And when there is no common power, what does that mean? Which means there is no distinction between what is right and wrong. What is right and wrong? What is just and unjust? और ये चीज़ कहाँ नहीं है? ये एक चीज़ state of nature में नहीं है. तो question का synthesis यहाँ तक पहुँचना चाहिए. अब कहाँ से start करना है? That we'll go. Okay? You deconstructed the question. Have you understood how the state of nature has to be applied in this sense and how we have to bring the demand of the question at the end? Okay, so we will be talking of Hobbes, we will be talking of state of nature, and at the end this comparison is very, very important. Is it clear? Because that's what the question is saying. Now, so first idea that you will be explaining here in this question 1, I'm discussing, okay, is Hobbes as a thinker. Hobbes as a thinker. So yes, we say that Hobbes is a modern thinker, right? Hobbes is a modern thinker because of his methodology, his perspective, his thought process, everything, how he makes human nature very scientific. Okay, we know how he makes human nature scientific, all of you know. Scientific is on the basis of motions, various motions within human beings. Mind, the particles, how the particles get attracted to pleasure, and how the particles get away from displeasure, okay? So he makes human nature scientific, and his idea, the way he has put methodology, how he gives emphasis on nominalism, okay, right? Then this concept that as a thinker, he is a modern thinker, the theory of sovereignty, the scientific view of human nature has been his key contribution, and his right emphasis on legal theory of sovereignty. Is it understood? So this idea Hobbes gives. Then we say directly, since ऐसे statement वाले जो questions होते हैं, ठीक है, किसी thinker और फिर उसकी theory के context में पूछे जाए, तो it's always better that rather first decoding the statement, you tell from where the statement refers. This will ease that examiner also will understand that you have understood the question. So the next point is that the context of this statement is his idea of state of nature. His idea of state of nature, okay? Right? And what is his idea of state of nature? Okay? So his idea of state of nature, it is imaginary idea and it is a hypothetical idea. Is it understood? Is he actually trying to do the historical evolution? कि कहीं दुनिया में कैसा एक state of nature था और उस state of nature में ऐसे लोग होते थे, वहाँ पे anarchy होती थी, might is right होता था, big fish eating small fish. क्या वो ये कहना चाहते हैं? नहीं. He is not emphasizing on the historicity of the evolution of the state. You understand this? His emphasis is to use this as an imagination to derive his idea of human nature and state of nature. Is this clear? So second, we will be talking of this state of nature. It is his imaginary and hypothetical condition, and he is, yes, one of the key runners of social contract tradition. Social contract tradition. Okay? Now, how is this state of nature? So in this state of nature, there is, what is every individual guided by? Every individual is guided by key motivation of self-preservation. सबको अपनी जान बचानी है, अपने इंटरेस्ट को बचाना है. And what is the nature of the resources available here? So resources is limited. So when something is limited, like UPSC seats, what will we do? What do we call this? When there is something which is limited, तो सब जन उसके पीछे भाग रहे हैं, तो क्या generate होता है? Naturally, competition is there. So in this state of nature, there is competition. And because there is competition, what is happening? Because there is competition, that obviously there is anarchy. अब कंपटीशन तो आज के ज़माने में भी है, तो आज वैसे एनार्की क्यों नहीं है और तब एनार्की क्यों थी? क्या रीज़न है? ठीक है, बिकॉज एट दैट टाइम देयर वाज नो लॉ, नो कॉमन पावर. आज के दिन गवर्नमेंट है, आज के दिन वे ऑफ डूइंग थिंग्स है, कंपटीशन है तो भी, है ना? सो देयर इज़ अ conduct, there is a way to regulate things, which was not there. So this anarchy was because of these factors. And in this, what will happen in this, right? So those who are very cunning, right, those who have physical strength and both mental strength, they will win. Okay? So there will not be any dispute resolution mechanism also that will be available in such a regard. This we explain, this idea of state of nature we explain in detail. All the parameters, what is the key process going on, what it leads to, okay? Then what it leads to anarchy. Then how some people who are very cunning and physically more strong, how they will do. So it leads to an anarchist condition, there is jungle raj, there is might is right, okay? And what does Hobbes himself say, right? Life is short, nasty, brutish. So that key statement also has to come. All right? Now, expand on this state of nature. Okay? So, this competition is perpetual. And he says that this will end, ceaseth only with death, because it keeps on going. Ceases only with death. And he actually gives 3 key reasons of why this competition is, what are the key reasons. So he says that people are fighting because they cannot be, so he states the reason of diffidence. He says everybody wants glory for their own reputation. Diffidence means they are not assertive, they cannot speak out what they feel, okay? And that is why this is to ensure their own safety. All right? So we have explained the entire state of nature, why he makes it imaginary concept, why it is hypothetical concept. He is not trying to do the historicity of the state. Is it understood? तो chronological order या evolutionary idea context Hobbes का नहीं है. वो इस चीज़ से सिर्फ अपने human nature पे derive करना चाहता है और उसके बाद he wants to give this what? Right? He wants to give this idea of social contract that he is envisaging. Okay? Then we talk about what the statement, we compare his idea with Plato and Hobbes. So how Plato's idea had a moral dimension to justice, Hobbes had a legal dimension to justice. Okay? And then we will be saying that yes, there are other thinkers who have criticized this. Why? What is the basis of this criticism? The basis of the individualism and the absolutism that he propounds. Absolutism. So he talks of Leviathan, right, as the final sovereign. So this individualism and absolutism as the key consistent principle within Hobbes' philosophy. Yes, so logically it is very consistent. He is very much worried about the individual. Lot of emphasis on the individual. But the only way to control this individual is absolutism according to Hobbes. So then you say that how thinkers like Locke say that no, man is not guided merely by passion. Man is also guided by reason in the state of nature. And there can be a moderate way of doing things. So imagine we also compared Plato here, okay, and we also compared Locke here. So this shows interlinkages, okay, between thinkers, how you bring it. और 20 मार्क के क्वेश्चन में ऐसा सवाल लिख दोगे तो मज़ा आएगा ना, ठीक है? चलो, I'll just skip through fast with the model answer so that you get an overview also, right? So how he is the first modern thinker, right? Theory of sovereignty, positivist theory of law, how his entire political thought is derived from the psychology about human beings. Then what is the state of nature? It is a human condition. How is this state of nature? It is unconstrained by any kind of legal rules. What is the key thing or key factor driving human beings? Is passion for desire and aversion. Then the state of nature, life of man is what? Solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. This statement has to come, highlight it in a box, it will show more visibility. Then there is obviously, because of all these things, there is ruthless competition and conflict of interest. And competition, okay, so for what? Obviously, competition, diffidence, and glory. These are the three key factors for which what? Quarrel happens in the state of nature. And because he says that there is no distinction between right and wrong, standard to judge, and no distinction of just and unjust in the state of nature. That's why we compare his concept with Plato's concept, which is moral, and Hobbes makes this justice as what? Essentially byproduct of law. All right? So yes, it is an imaginary condition of human beings, individualism and absolutism, and yes, Locke's idea. Okay? Now the next question I will move to. This question has not been asked after 2011. Okay? They have asked his freedom of speech, right? But his views on women adult suffrage, but Mill and his liberty concept has not been asked in this way. So Mill was the prophet of empty liberty and abstract individualism. I will rewrite the question to deconstruct this for you. Mill was the prophet of empty liberty and abstract individual. Or who said this? We heard Ernest Barker. Ernest Barker. Okay? Now, let's see how. So, अभी तक तो ये समझ आया कि लिबर्टी एंड मिल्स आइडिया ऑफ लिबर्टी हैज़ बीन इन सो मच रेवरेंस. दुनिया भर में फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच, एक्शन, थॉट, एसोसिएशन, इस सारी चीज़ों के लिए मिल को इतना रिस्पेक्ट किया जाता है. और ये जनाब कह रहे हैं कि ये प्रॉफिट ऑफ एम्प्टी लिबर्टी है. तो ऐसा क्या ग्राउंड्स इन्होंने उठाया है जिसकी वजह से मिल को प्रॉफिट ऑफ एम्प्टी लिबर्टी बोला? ठीक है, सो वी हैव टू नो दैट ग्राउंड. इनको ऐसा क्या लगता है? और इंसान को जो समझा है मिल ने, वाई ही इज सेइंग दैट दिस आइडिया इज एब्स्ट्रैक्ट इंडिविजुअल. ओके, अब ये क्वेश्चन कितने मार्क्स का पूछा है? 15 मार्क्स. सो वी विल नॉट बिगिन विद द क्रिटिक, इवन इफ द क्रिटिक हैज बीन आस्क्ड. We will talk about the greatness because we have understood his idea of liberty as what? His idea of liberty as with lot of respect. It is the keynote of liberalism. So in this question, even if the question has a negative connotation, इसको शुरू कैसे करना है? क्योंकि वो idea in itself इतनी बड़ी है, उसमें criticism हो सकते हैं, लेकिन हम critique से शुरू नहीं करेंगे. ये होता है कहाँ से क्वेश्चन को उठाना है, ये समझना है. ठीक है? सो फर्स्ट थिंग इज हम कहाँ से उठाएंगे? ग्रेटनेस ऑफ मिल. ही इज नोन एज अ ग्रेट लिबरल. ओके, लिबर्टी इज हिज की नोट एंड लिबर्टी इज द की नोट ऑफ विच स्कूल ऑफ थॉट? ऑफ लिबरलिज्म. एंड one more very key idea, that this idea of liberty that he is giving, all right, actually it reflects, it is linked with all his ideas, whether he is revising utilitarianism, okay, how from the negative way of looking at it by Bentham, how he is transitioning, then how, whether it is his idea of what, utilitarianism and its revision, or whether it is women's suffrage and women's participation, because even, right, women, or whether he talks of democracy, this criticism that he gives to democracy, that it results into majority, right, and minorities are ignored many times, okay. So all his ideas, all of them have one keynote, and liberty. And he says liberty is very important for self-development, and the ground for this self-development is human dignity, okay. अब इतना क्रक्स समझ आया? So first we write about Mill as a key thinker, his idea of liberty. Then we will criticize as Barker is saying. So then we will do expand on the concept. So what is the kind of, where does he talk of this essay? He calls it as an essay, not a work that way, okay. He calls it as an essay on liberty. So he doesn't want to give any theory, he is just putting forth his view. That's why he makes it an essay, okay. And which all liberties has he spoken of, okay. So he talks of freedom of speech and expression, thought, right, and association. Then expand little bit, one liners. Freedom of speech and expression क्यों है, right? Freedom of speech and expression is to truth, okay. So if individual is not allowed to think, right, will he able to derive a truth? So even thought is very important. And association is when people come together, all right. Then when we have expanded on his concept of liberty, here you make a transition, okay, that he also distinguishes between what, self-regarding and others regarding. Action, okay. So he says that in self-regarding action there should not be any interference by state or society. But if an individual wants to harm oneself, if I go and try to commit suicide, or if I do something which is harming the life of another individual, ड्राइविंग करते हुए किसी को मार दिया, ये तुम्हारी लिबर्टी तो क्या बन जाएगी फिर, लाइसेंस बन जाएगी. तो लिबर्टी का मतलब यहाँ पे लाइसेंस है ही नहीं, ओके. So self regarding, other regarding action, there is interference will be allowed for harm principle, okay. Is this much understood? तो हमने पहले मिल से शुरू किया, उसकी लिबर्टी की आइडिया और ग्राउंड क्या है, वो उसकी आइडिया के कंपोनेंट्स क्या हैं, राइट, फ्रॉम स्पीच, थॉट, एक्शन, एसोसिएशन. नाउ we also expanded on the idea of how he talks about self-regarding and other regarding. Now we talk of what is Barker saying, why he is calling him his idea of liberty that way. So Barker कौन सा आदमी है? Barker है positive liberal. And what is Mill said? So he has not completely moved towards positive liberty. We say he is on the crossroads. He is paving for this transition, crossroads of negative and positive liberty. He is on the crossroads. On the other hand, Barker is a positive liberal. So he feels that this idea of liberty, where the self-regarding actions are allowed, or the individual is allowed to speak even if the individual is in minority or single self, right? All assumption of it is that one should be allowing or silencing of discussion is infallibility, कि इंसान को जो बोलना है किस कल्चर के बारे में, किस चीज़ के बारे में, thought process, if he wants to arrive at truth, whatever that individual wants to speak, let him speak, says who? Mill. even if he is in minority, because eventually the truth will emerge even from one individual, he says. So बारकर बोलता है कि तुमने जो लिबर्टी का आइडिया दिया है, right, by allowing for this self-regarding action or complete freedom of speech and expression, all this is more shifted towards negative liberty than positive liberty, because you have not clearly established the what. तुमने other regarding action भी दिया, लेकिन other regarding action का ground क्या दिया है? other regarding action का एक ही ground दिया है, ठीक है, कि harm principle है. तो you have not moved towards a complete positive liberty. That's why he calls what? Mill's idea as empty. Okay. Second thing, why his idea of individual is considered as abstract? Because what does Barker say? Barker says that every individual is composition of what? Of the social whole. All right? This is like, individual is like a part and this is like a body. And can the parts of your body work without your body, or can your body work without your parts? Which means there is no dislinkage that can happen between. But his individual is very abstract. वो तो ऐसे independent individual है जो उसको मन है वो कर सकता है, उसको कोई influence या कोई interference नहीं होना चाहिए from the society. Okay, right? And also that Mill has not specifically said for the whole idea of welfare state also, where state can have a positive role to ensure social security for its citizen. He is not clearly establishing that also. So that's why Barker says कि तुमने ये जो इंसान को समझा है ना, तुमको लगता है ये इंसान का सोसाइटी से कोई लिंकेज ही नहीं है और वो अपने आप में एक इंडिविजुअल मशीन है, तो ये जो तुमने बताया ये गलत है. इंडिविजुअल इज ऑलवेज कॉम्पोज्ड ऑफ द सोसाइटी, right? So Barker sometimes, going higher to the extent. Then we talk of the significance of his idea of liberty, right? Even if this criticism we have to point. And how Mill is a great thinker. He is trying to do what? He is trying to make a very good balance between the heart and the head. So world will remember him for this great balance. That's how we conclude. Now you understood how to start the question from where? तो किसी आदमी ने किसी थिंकर का क्रिटिसिज्म भी किया है, तो क्वेश्चन की फर्स्ट लाइन वहाँ से नहीं होनी चाहिए. क्रिटिसिज्म करने के लिए उस आदमी ने बात क्या की है वो तो बताओ, फिर एक एक ग्राउंड उस बड़े थिंकर का लेके क्रिटिसिज्म को इस्टेब्लिश करो. ये होता है क्लियर जस्टिफिकेशन. ओके, राइट? इफ यू डू दिस देन योर थॉट प्रोसेस विल बी वेरी स्मूथ, disturbances will also not come, and whole idea is also explained. That's what the examiner also wants to understand. Is it clear? Okay, so tomorrow we will be going to day 3. Okay, any doubts if you have, or anything that you have not understood in the question, please post your comments on the video link. All right, because sometimes when student message personally, I might just skip, but if it is on the video, I will answer that query over there only. Okay, thank you so much. All the very best. We'll meet tomorrow for day 3. Bye. Take care.